Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. He looked in horror as she held up the authentic Bavarian shepherd girl costume. The black high heels and a set of white underwear that included lacy-topped hold-up stockings might not have been quite so authentic, but they did nothing to ease his terror. Patricia Crawford reminded him of his obligations as she puffed out the short sleeves of the blouse. Then she added the blonde pigtailed wig, a girly hat, followed by a coat of red lipstick on his mouth. There, you are the perfect alpine serving wench, Maria. No one could say you're a victim of discriminatory fashion now. As the wording of his original complaint echoed in his ears, he looked at himself in the mirror. Only last week he had spent part of the night in the bar antagonizing girls who had worn the same uniform that he now found himself wearing. He wondered how on earth he was expected to get away working like this. And what if some drunken guys tried to hit on him? Patricia Crawford allowed herself a satisfied smile. She was going to enjoy this. He could not possibly be seen in public like this. He did not even think it was legal to have such a humiliation heaped upon him. His thoughts were broken when he heard the click-clack of someone else entering the staff room. When he turned around, he saw one of the other staff members approaching. She wore a black version of his outfit, with a white undergarments riding on the bodice, and large pink hearts on the lace-frilled skirt. White hold-up stockings and silver heels completed her look. 2 red ribbons kept her blonde hair in cute pigtails, and her makeup was much heavier than his. She looked at him and smiled, then she turned to Patricia and asked, "So this is Maria then?" Patricia nodded, then looked at Mark before making the introductions. "Yes, Heidi, this is Maria. Heidi will be your mentor this week, so pay very close attention to what she tells you." He was now embarrassed beyond his wildest nightmare. There was no way this girl was called Heidi, and the entire scenario was just ridiculous. And it was time he said so. "Okay, I get the joke. I know you're still annoyed about me taking you to the equal opportunities, but you can't seriously expect me to work in this outfit?" The expressions of both the women told him it was no joke. They were deadly serious, as Patricia promptly pointed out. "You signed your contract of employment, didn't you? That contract has your agreement to wear the company uniform at all times when you are working, and you also agreed to buy the clothes too, so if you want to quit, go ahead, but you'll owe me over £1,000 before you go." Mark Andrews could not see how on earth she had arrived at such a figure. He was still hoping this was just her way at getting back at him. "That's a ridiculous amount," he protested. Patricia shook her head, then opened up his locker to reveal another 2 complete uniforms hanging inside. There were also 2 additional pairs of high heels, a pair of lace-up ankle boots, a pair of white patent knee-high platform boots with pink lacing, and a bundle of underwear. "You really are slow. You have 2 extra uniforms which you will wear on special occasions, not to mention that wig you're wearing, which, incidentally, cost over £200 on its own." He looked at the other outfits. They were the same style as the one he had on, but one was pink with a white lace-up bodice, and the other was black PVC. Patricia waited until he had digested the contents of the locker, then smiled. "I think you'll look great in the rubber one. What do you think, Heidi?" Heidi nodded and replied, "We wear that one with the ankle boots whenever there is a stag party in the bar, easier to wipe away any spills that we always get when those nights are on. The pink and white number we keep for the hen parties, it's a girly thing, you know." Patricia interrupted, then gloatingly remarked, "Incidentally, we have a stag night this coming Saturday, so you might want to try on the uniform beforehand, just to get an idea of how tight it is going to be." This did nothing to make him feel any better, and he was desperate to get the clothing off. "Listen, you cannot seriously expect me to serve customers in your bar dressed like this?" Patricia almost laughed, then said quite forcefully, "Of course you're not going to serve my customers looking like a man in drag." You'll spend your first week pouring the drinks from behind the bar. And Heidi here will make sure you come up to scratch by the end of the week." Heidi nodded in agreement, then took Mark by the hand and led him over to a mirror on the far wall. She made him look at his reflection before telling him, "I'll soon get you looking the perfect little Tyrol princess. It's amazing what you can do with makeup these days." As he stood listening with growing horror, Heidi put a hand on his bodice, then made a mock attempt to plump up his upper part. "I'm not sure makeup is going to help with these though." Patricia Crawford looked at her wristwatch, then reminded Heidi that it would soon be opening time. "Make sure that Maria knows exactly where everything is and introduce her to the rest of the girls. And Maria, I know you'll understand what I mean when I tell you it's in your best interests to make yourself look as convincing as possible." She watched him wilt under the force of her words, then finished with a polite, "Boys can be so unforgiving when they find out they've been cheated on." With her instructions issued, Patricia headed back to her office, feeling more than happy that her new member of staff was in the capable hands of her best supervisor. Mark Andrews turned round from the mirror and asked when he would get his own clothes back. Patricia ignored his question, leaving Heidi to answer it for her. Heidi told Mark he would only take off his uniform at the end of his shift, and it was better not to attempt to intimidate Patricia. She had the only key, and she might well leave him dressed up for his journey home. "Come on, Maria. Let's go to work." She gave him little choice but to do as she asked, and he allowed her to take him by the hand and into the main bar area. As a previous customer in the place, he already knew the basic layout, but he was taken aback by the size of the bar from the employee point of view. There appeared to be endless pumps offering the continental beers that made the place so popular. Heidi watched with delight as he began to take in the enormity of the task ahead. "Don't worry, Maria, you'll soon pick it up." Mark Andrews was not convinced by the tone of her voice. He felt intimidated that he was going to be responsible for making sure the beer kept flowing. What would happen if his overindulgent mates discovered that the girl behind the bar was in fact him? Heidi started to describe the various beers that each pump contained and made sure he knew exactly what bottles were also stocked in the fridges behind the bar. For his part, Mark appeared to do his best to keep up with the introduction. After all, it was in his best interests to be as efficient as possible. 10 minutes later, while Heidi was explaining the finer points of beer barrel pressure to him, the evening crew arrived to begin their shift. Heidi assembled her team together and brought Mark to the front. They looked at him with a mixture of mirth and surprise. They had never had a man working the bar before. Heidi made sure they all knew where they stood with the new arrival. "Girls, this is Maria. She's starting behind the bar tonight, so any help you can offer her will, I'm sure, be most appreciated. She is especially nervous given her circumstances." Mark hated the way Heidi emphasized the words "she" and "to her." Some of the girls giggled at the prospect, others thought to themselves it was a great idea to turn the tables on the opposite sex. Heidi waited until the chatter abated, then spoke. "When you give her an order for drinks, please try and write it clearly for once." Heidi instructed the girls to introduce themselves to Maria, then prepare for opening. Each girl smiled as they exchanged introductions. They seemed more concerned about his potential to slow down drink service than his attire. As team leader, Heidi delivered the motivational speech. She emphasized the importance of maximum effort and a trouble-free shift for everyone. Mark inquired about removing his heels, arguing that customers wouldn't see him. Heidi firmly declined, stating, "You will remain in full uniform at all times while on duty, Maria. Remember that, and never be found improperly dressed." "Understood?" Resigned, he nodded and took his place behind the bar as a girl opened the door. Despite the usual Wednesday evening lull, the bar began to fill with mostly young male patrons. Mark braced himself for a long night. The first order arrived quickly, and he began filling glasses with ale. Once ready, he passed the tray to Paula, a dark-haired girl. She took it without a thank you, and he hoped it wasn't intentional. Orders flooded in during the first half hour, leaving him no time to dwell on the possibility of encountering friends. He was frantically preparing drink trays for the serving girls. Mark was certain the serving girls were whispering about him to the customers, often pointing in his direction. Heidi approached, assisting him with a large order. As they handed the tray to a girl, Heidi pointedly remarked, "Maria, what on earth is that stain on your skirt?" He glanced down to see a damp patch running down the skirt. He knew it was likely from spilled beer, but he understood how it might look. "It's beer, Heidi," he explained, "the glasses overflow sometimes when things get busy." Her expression remained unimpressed. "Well, make sure it doesn't happen again. That uniform needs to be dry cleaned first thing tomorrow, express service." He tried to clarify, "Who do I give the uniform to?" Heidi suppressed a laugh. "To the dry cleaner, of course." "No, I meant, who takes it to the dry cleaner?" She finally explained, "You do, of course. It's your uniform." Mark wasn't entirely surprised by this, but it still came as a bit of a shock. "And what do I say when I walk into a shop with a dress?" Heidi finished an order, handed it to a girl, and instructed, "Say, please can I have my uniform cleaned, express service." That usually works. Now get back to work, and no more back chat. We'll discuss this after the shift. She left him alone at the bar, likely heading upstairs. He hoped she wasn't on her way to tell Patricia. For the rest of the night he did his best to keep up with the demand. One of his fellow team members reminded him it was only a quiet Wednesday night, and he'd better sharpen up before Friday. And then there was the stag party at the weekend. Not only was it big tips night, they were always the most boisterous. You wait until it's your backside getting slapped because the drinks are late. She was not impressed, and her tone of voice made that clear. When he finally managed to complete her table order, she all but swiped the tray off him. If he'd remembered, this was the same girl he had slapped on the backside last week, but he wasn't paying attention to her face then. Mark Andrews wiped more beer from his skirt and decided that working in a bar should have been relatively easy for any man, but was he a man? Men did not wear high heels and white hold-up stockings, or bright green bodice ripping dresses. By chance rather than good fortune he managed to get through the shift and was relieved when Heidi came downstairs and locked the front door. He had not particularly ingratiate himself with the girls working the tables, and none of them were particularly talkative towards him. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.